I am big is about sharing what's working in a big way. Today we have the privilege to talk to Jennifer Nielsen. As a teenager, like many of us, Jen struggled to find where she fits in. She took this very struggle and later on turned it into a life calling. Jen is an education director for a large nonprofit where she provides anti-bias education to the community, working to provide youth and adults with strategies to combat bias and bullying. Let us welcome Jen Nielsen to the I Am Big show. Nice to see you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jen.
It's good to be here.
Beautiful. You're looking very pretty.
Sweetie. Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling good.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good. Coffee is your drink?
Coffee is my drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the I Am Big show.
Thank you. Oh, that's good coffee.
What do you like about coffee?
It's just a pick-me-up. It helps me get going.
Yeah?
Yeah. Helps me every
Have you
day.
been having coffee for a while?
Yeah, I think probably since college. I have a cup or two a day.
Not a bad vice to have. Would you consider it a vice?
No, I don't consider it a vice because I don't overdo it. It's something that just helps me get my day started.
Good.
And I look forward to the taste.
I love. It's an upper lifter kicker. Yeah, good. Well, thank you for coming. So you were born in Minnesota, right?
Yes.
And brought up in the Twin City areas. Mm-hmm. How was your life and experience going up there?
It was great. Great place to grow up. Very family friendly.
I love your family, by the way.
My family's wonderful.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
My parents were very, they made a conscious decision of where to raise my brother and I so that we would have a good school system and we'd have, family support. All of our family lived there and it's just a great place to raise a family. I love it.
How was the environment growing up for you in school and the kids and things like that?
When I look back at my childhood, I realized that, I was part of the majority in terms of it's a very Scandinavian white background, and I'm Norwegian. I grew up in a middle-class society, or a middle-class community. I was part of the majority religion, Christian. In all of those pieces of my identity, I was part of the majority. In terms of living in that, I lived in a community that I felt like I was somewhat in a bubble, and it was a community where it was very homogenous. People were very much alike in terms of their identities, and because of that, I think I felt, and I think probably a lot of people felt, a pressure to conform and to act a certain way, to look a certain way, to dress a certain way, and that wasn't something that I felt comfortable with. It was, I almost felt like it was a role you had to play. And it wasn't a role that I was comfortable in. And I tried to play that role, and I didn't know how. I just didn't know how to be that, popular person or that person who acted or dressed that way, and it just didn't feel comfortable to me. I was a really sensitive kid, and so because I felt this pressure to conform and I didn't feel like I fit that role, because I was so sensitive, I didn't know where I fit, and I didn't know how to be myself and I didn't know how to make that uniqueness come out without feeling singled out.
So what did you do?
I withdrew into myself. I was a very shy kid as well. And I didn't take that chance to let my uniqueness shine and say, you know what, the world wants me to be this way or my community wants me to be this way. I'm going to be who I am. I didn't have the courage to do that. So I just kind of withdrew into myself. I did have, my niches where I fit in and I felt comfortable, but they were very selective and very few and far between, and so I just kind of shut down and put everything within myself and didn't express myself.
So just from a teenager's perspective, what was something you were like an example of where this is something you're supposed to be doing and you just didn't want to do it, but you still kind of had to do it, but you didn't want to do it, so you finally just said, I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to take it within. Give an example.
I think for me it was, when I think back to what I felt insecure about, it was oftentimes you had to play the part of looking a certain way. And I'm not sure where all I got those messages from, but I had this message in my mind that you had to have the designer clothes. You had to have...
Even as a teenager.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. You had to look that certain way. You had to be very put together. And this was during the 80s. And in the 80s, as many of our viewers know, big hair was in. And the hair that I had growing up, yes, I was part of the majority community, but my hair was very frizzy and very curly, and straight hair was in, and big bangs and all of that. And so I would try to kind of control my hair to make it look like other people's, and it never quite worked. And I got teased for that. And so I, again, just kind of withdrew.
Did you see a lot of bullying around you? What did you experience?
Everybody has something that they feel is not normal. And some people are better at coming to terms with that. I was just really sensitive to it and wasn't able to overcome that as a child. I have now to some extent. But yeah, I did see a lot of that, a lot of people being singled out because they didn't fit the norm.
And what is normal anyway? And who
exactly,
defines what's
exactly.
normal? Yeah, right,
and
right.
I think I always felt like, what's normal is considered normal in this community. I don't fit into it, but I knew I was going to fit in somewhere else, and so I was always searching for that. But yeah, I did see bullying, and I saw a lot of kids made fun of, teased, and it really hurt me, and I wanted to stand up for them. I wanted to say, stop what you're doing. Stop this behavior. This is ridiculous. This is a person, because I saw how it hurt them, but I didn't have the courage to do so. I didn't have the courage to stand up for myself and be who I was, so obviously I didn't have the courage to stand up for somebody else because I didn't want to become, I was withdrawing and trying to keep out of the limelight, and I didn't want to become that next victim or that next target by standing up for somebody. And I had a lot of guilt about that all the time.
So I think our viewers would love to hear, I would love to hear, even though I know bits and pieces, it's amazing that you've taken your personal challenge growing up and you made it into a life calling. Tell us about that journey.
So it wasn't a straight and narrow path. I think for a lot of people it's hard to figure out your calling in life and where you want to be. When I went to college, I remember my freshman year making this very conscious decision that I was going to put the negativity of my childhood behind me. I mean, I had a great childhood. I had wonderful things, wonderful supportive family, etc. But that insecurity and that not knowing who I was, not expressing myself, I was going to put that behind me and I was going to recreate myself and be who I was. So I made this really conscious decision. The main way that I did that was finding these groups on campus, these student groups that had similar values to me. So I joined, for example, FLAG, Friends of Lesbians and Gays, because I wanted to have these people around me who were like-minded. I joined this group called STOP, Students Taking on Prejudice. I was one of the founding members. I became part of the international student group, just finding these ways to kind of latch on to this mission that I believed in of equity, of acceptance, of respect, of human dignity, and knowing that these people had this shared mission and these shared values with me so that I could just be myself and not have to worry about it. And that really opened up this whole new world to me, that I was able to express my voice and find this way to just put myself out there and stand up for what I believed in a really authentic way. Yeah. And after that, I just decided I'm going to continue on that mission. So I looked for work, became a teacher for a while, working with students that I knew, I wanted to empower. I wanted them to have that same voice.
Because you were feeling empowered.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going to a nonprofit, and I've been there for almost a decade, Anti-Defamation League. I love it. And
I love it too.
It's an amazing organization because it allows me to do this work and to continue to have this place where I can be myself. I have these colleagues in this community that accepts me, but also I can empower others and use that voice that took me so long to find to empower other people. It's an amazing thing, and I'm so blessed that I found it.
But you taking charge and saying, things happen like anything else, right? Give us a couple examples of what you do and the impact.
So I work in what we call anti-bias education and anti-bullying education. A lot of the work that we do, it's really based on respect and human dignity. It's about just because somebody has a different identity than you doesn't mean less than. Different doesn't mean less than. Different does not mean less than. Different just means different. Mm-hmm. And we all have unique things that we can offer to the world. So I do a lot of work with teachers and students, especially looking at how can we improve dialogue amongst one another, how can we be allies to one another. A lot of our work and a lot of what I really believe in is empowering people to be allies. If the world had more allies to stand up against those who are bullying or those who are discriminating or those who are, just being mean, if more people would stand up, the world would be so much better and we'd all be free to be big and to have things like this. So we go out into schools, I go out into schools and conduct these workshops for students and teachers and really just try to help them discover their voice so that they can accept themselves and accept others.
That's lovely. Can you share with us an example of a situation where somebody was not able to share their voice and what happened?
Yeah, I think a lot of times today, especially teenagers, really struggle with putting themselves out there and being accepted. And you think about, some people think, oh, bullying is just a rite of passage, but if you are consistently, there are kids that are consistently, they go to school, they're consistently name-called, bullied, they have things thrown at them, they're beat up, and oftentimes, their teachers don't know how to stand up for them. And a lot of times, students who are LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or perceived to be that way, are the most frequent victims of this type of bullying. And these kids, they want to express themselves, but so often they can't even be themselves. They can't even, or people perceive them to be that way, and they can't even get around that. And the horrible thing about it today is that kids go home. When I went home, if I was teased at school, I went home and I could shut the door, and my family was supportive, and I could just, do whatever. But nowadays, these kids go home and they have to do their homework online, and they're getting instant messages saying, you're so gay, I hate you, you should die, go hang yourself. There are kids that literally commit suicide because they're bombarded constantly with this message that your identity is not accepted. What I try to do and what we try to do at my work is go in and create dialogues. I think the most important thing that you can do, especially with kids, but also with adults, is just create this safe space where people can talk about it. Because when I think back to my childhood, I think about the fact that when I saw somebody being bullied, I wanted to speak up, I wanted to say something, but I thought I'd be the only one. And so I was too scared. So if you create this safe space, not only, number one, are you creating this sense that if we've talked about it and I know that you don't like what's happening, and I don't like what's happening, and you don't like what's happening, I'm more likely to stand up and know that I have an ally. But also, it gives the person who's doing the bullying behavior a sense of empathy. They suddenly realize, I didn't realize that what I was doing was hurting somebody, but when I hear that story, in our workshops, we've had so many kids come up to the microphone in tears and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize what I was doing was hurting you. Sorry. Some of these kids, the things that they say, and it's unbelievable when they're empowered to recognize their behavior, they make this instant change. So for me, it's about getting students to understand their behavior. And once they do, obviously you're going to have some people, kids and adults alike, bullying happens in the workplace as well. But once people, some people aren't going to change their behavior, but the majority of people, once they have that empathy and they understand the consequences of their action, they want to change. They just need to be empowered to do so.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the show. It is extremely moving to me to see how a human being authentically takes a life challenge and makes it into a life calling. And then as a result, gives each of us an opportunity to not only get aware and be aware of what a gift our life is, and that we are a gift to this world, and we are meant to be who we are and not somebody we were not supposed to be. And to learn more about Jen and her wonderful work, please visit adl.org
/combat bullying
/combat bullying, adl.org /combat bullying, and talk to us, reach out to us, write to us, because you matter. Love you. Take care. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.